AP English Language and Composition online students. This is Mr. Francavella once again. Lesson 6 is actually explaining, helping you understand the 2 worksheets you did last week. So I corrected them, but I want to explain to you why you got some things wrong, or my thinking on how to get the right answer. So hopefully you are going to pay attention to this video because it should be helpful. This is the noun clause worksheet. We're starting with the noun clause worksheet. Find the verb in the main clause. Find the subject and verb. Subject, verb. It's an action verb. So our complement is a direct object. Caroline mentioned. She mentioned this piece of information. She mentioned this piece of information. So the whole piece of information is your direct object. It's a noun clause. Noun clauses begin often with how, that, or a WH word. So this whole thing, she is the subject in the subordinate clause, noun clause, had earned is the verb in it. So we do have a subject-verb combination. When you're trying to find a subordinate clause, any type, look for the second subject-verb combination apart from the one in the main independent clause. Have you done any further thinking about what I suggested? This follows the preposition. And here is the subject, I suggested. So the first word isn't always the subject in a subordinate clause. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. The WH word sometimes is, sometimes isn't. But we do have a subject and a verb following a preposition. You can identify what the noun clause is doing oftentimes by where it's placed in the sentence. It's last. Here it's a direct object. But you have done thinking. I already have a direct object. You, subject, have done, verb, phrase, thinking. Thinking is a gerund noun, but it is your direct object. I don't need another direct object. All right? It follows a preposition. So you do have to understand sentence structure. Everything here is the subject up to the verb. Here we have an A positive. This comes in between commas and renames the noun. It's followed by a linking verb. Because she wants to save money, my mother is used to buying whatever is on sale. This is a little tricky. It is an object. Something that people don't normally know is that it's just like we just had that about being the preposition and the noun clause that followed it was the object of the preposition. Same idea here. Used to is my verb phrase. Buying is a gerund, right? This is the object of the gerund, right? The noun, the ing noun. So we can have objects of other things besides prepositions. We can have objects of infinitives, gerunds, participles, which we're going to study this coming week. So you can just say object. You don't have to say OG, object of the gerund. Everything here is in front of the verb. So we know it's the subject. Right. Jamal is my subject. Could decide is my verb phrase in the negative. And this is what Jamal couldn't decide. This is the thing. It's a direct object. We don't want to keep underlining because we have a new subject in the independent clause. So this is where some of you got things wrong. Trapper enjoyed. What did he enjoy? He enjoyed all this thing. This whole thing is your direct object, but it's a little technical. This is your noun clause, why he had settled in the mountains, all right? Which is the object of this gerund, okay? But the whole gerund phrase is the direct object, and this is the object of the gerund. Okay. So the noun clause actually starts with Y. That's very tricky. We have a preposition here, folks. This is the object of the preposition, too. You must recognize prepositions, but I'm going to talk about them in this upcoming week. Subject, everything up to the linking verb. Policy is my subject. States is my action verb. Precisely is not important. It's just never modifying the verb. States what? It states everything here, but you got that right. Most of you did put an object of some sort, the direct object. Now you did have trouble, even the ones who were doing better, identifying subject complements, one of which is a predicate nominative. Remember, there's predicate adjective and predicate nominatives. This is where you had trouble. One is my subject. This is a prepositional phrase, not my subject. One was linking verb. What follows a linking verb if it's a noun? Predicate nominative, which is a subject complement, not an objective complement. All right, so whether the police should, all the way to the end, that is your predicate nominative, not a direct object, because this is not an action verb. Same thing here. Subject. This one's difficult because one act was enough for the critic to know. To know is an infinitive. To plus a verb is an infinitive. This noun clause does not start with your normal word, but it's the thing that you know. So it's like the object of a preposition. It's the object of the infinitive. Subject, subject. So those are pretty easy. Object of the preposition for. He, subject, was eating, verb phrase, action. This, okay? Whatever he could get his hands on. That's the idea. He was eating. This is the noun clause that is the direct object. Now, I start a new independent clause here, so I can't keep underlining. This is my subject. Predicate nominative follows a linking verb. Victory, subject, was, linking verb, and then everything after that's your predicate nominative. Now let's look at the other worksheet that you did. Okay. So, now we're paying more attention to all three of the subordinate clause types. Here, this modifies athlete, follows a noun, so it's an adjective. And it starts with a relative pronoun, who, whose, whom, which, that, or relative adverb. Relative pronoun or relative adverb, when, where, why. So this is starting with a relative pronoun, which should let us know that it is an adjective clause. There's nothing here. All right, I think most of you got that correct in the way of being a subordinate clause. Prepositional phrase, income pays, subject verb, prepositional phrase, and we have a compound verb, right? Income pays, covers. So I have two verbs, but they go back to the same subject. That means I do not have more than one subject-verb combination, so I do not have more than one clause. So I cannot have a subordinate clause. If I only have one clause, it has to be an independent clause. Otherwise, I have a fragment. A lot of you put that this was not an adjective clause. You thought it was none, that there were no subordinate clauses. This one does have a subordinate clause. A little tricky. It's short. Well, it includes all this, but the main part of it is very short, and it doesn't have the key indicating word, all right? The relative pronoun. So bring your application to any RMV clerk whom you find, I mean, people would say that you find, but whom you find would be correct. But we do not need to have that word there. It doesn't, its absence doesn't make the clause not a clause. It's still a clause because we have a subject and a verb. Bring your application to any RMV clerk whom you find on the first floor. It would actually be everything underlined here. Everything should be underlined, but I don't know, I probably gave it to you if you just got that. But most people didn't get it correct, if anyone. This modifies reason, starts with a relative adverb. Conferences determine this decision, okay? This is one idea. It's their direct object. This modifies better. It modifies what it comes next to, most likely. So if came out better, better is modifying came out, little phrasal verb. So whatever modifies an adverb is an adverb, right? The stadium is regularly filled to capacity on the day of the... There's no subject-verb combination besides the main one. Stadium is. Adverb modifies widely. This is an adverb, modifies... Well, I think this one goes back to the verb, but nevertheless, it's still an adverb, whether it modifies an adverb or a verb. Officials recommended this recommendation. One recommendation, it's your direct object, it's a thing. Same thing, the people whom I most admire. No. People know, subject, verb in the main clause. But we have another subject, verb. I admire. So we have more than one subject-verb combination. This is the main one. This is the subordinate one. If it's inside the other one. All right, hopefully that helps.